thanks, and good morning, and welcome to Chicago, my hometown and a beautiful city, as you can see behind you. So come on back and visit. Yeah, that ad that somebody showed yesterday for Chicago off of the text message got me going. I'm not sure who showed that, but thank you very much. As we turn to mobile wallets, our mobile payment, and mobile devices, I tend to bifurcate the system. And in so many reports from so many analysts, actually, before I get to that, let me say one thing. I am Larry Berlin. We do two things at First Analysis that I deal with, and there's a third thing. The third is corporate finance. I do equity research, so my clients are like the Fidelities, the Ames, the Invescos, wherever you have your mutual fund. Those people actually pay money, don't ask me. Yeah, they do it by check, believe it or not, to hear what I have to say about mobile payments, about existing payment companies, about Heartland, as Bob just spoke, about other firms in the world. And they're curious about that. We also do venture investing. We look for companies with about $5 million of revenue, and a couple that you may have heard of. One is TrustWave, and PCI Compliance is one of ours. Right Express, which is now WXS, which helps fleet management and fleet purchase of oil. We were their original VC in the 90s. Online Resources, and Belinda spoke yesterday, ACI Worldwide owns Online Resources now. We were out before they bought it, unfortunately, because they paid less than we sold it for. To flip into what I started to say, when I look at mobile, and I look at mobile when I look at the mobile world, I bifurcate it as this conference fortunately has between the mobile wallet, me pulling out my phone, which I left over there, and using my Android to use NFS, or I use Level Up, so my QR code or whatever it is to pay. And then the guy walking around at the store. I walked into Nordstrom last year with my girlfriend, and Nordstrom had a mobile POS system. They had a tablet. The woman at the perfume counter, or the makeup counter, walked around. They pulled up her identity, her information. They were able to say, by the way, you forgot to buy blush, and you normally buy that when you buy this assortment of goods. That ability to take the person from looking it down and hitting a number and checking the 16-digit code and checking my signature, to be able to look at Jeannie, in this case, and say, by the way, you need blush. No, they said a little bit nicer than that, is huge. And it's huge for the merchant. And I think we see it coming. I'm a little bit more skeptical on this afternoon's panel, but I think we see it coming. And I think we have three great participants in the space here to talk about it. And I would love for them to introduce themselves, their companies, and what their view is on the mobile payment in general, and how it's changing and what the progress has been coming forwards. So I would begin with Dee Dee, I think, since you're on the end.
Hi, my name is Dee Dee, and I'm with Express Checkout. So we're a little bit different from the mobile wallets. We started a conversation how that it's customer-centric. It's a lot about what consumer wants and what merchant wants. So we started from the point of what we would want with our personal phone and how we want to have it to help us in our shopping experiences. So Express Checkout, it's a mobile self-checkouts. So the idea is you can use your phone when you go to a grocery store or one of those busy stores and you don't want to wait in line. So you can scan the items and then pay and then leave and skip the entire line process. We're payment agnostic, which means we can integrate with any of the payment system, whichever the merchant requires. And we're also brand agnostic, because we think coming into this, there's so many wonderful companies, there's so many great brands out there, and we think it's no longer about like a global domination of a new cool technology. We think it's a way of life. We think the mobile phone has evolved as something extremely, extremely personal and useful. So what that means, especially with like Apple Pay, with PayPal, with Facebook, Amazon, and everybody getting into the game, from the big players, the biggest players, to just small startups like us, what that means is that there is a diversity there's a diverse need from the shoppers. We're different. There's a diverse of shoppers, so there's not a one set solution that can take care of everyone. And there's a diverse of merchants. And even merchant within the same category, like for example, grocery stores. You have the Walmart and the Kroger, which is very, very different from like the smaller grocery stores and the independent. What that means is there is so much space because this is no longer just a technology for a lot of people to enter in and serve the different needs, because that's how you best make the customers happy, because they're different, so we have the space. And that's who we are, and that's kind of how our view on the mobile payment, and that's cool.
Good morning. I'm Erica Bass. I'm the Director of Product Management for Verifone for the Americas. So I handle all of our devices from our multi-lane to mobile to our state management. We're really excited to be in this space, and we've been supporting all types of mobiles since I joined the company about 4.5 years ago. Finally, people kind of know what I do for a living with Apple Pay. I would say other wallets, and people do like, what do? You work for Vodafone? No. So, the space is definitely going to evolve over the next 12 months. With EMV coming to the market, with contactless, with Apple Pay, I think we're going to see a real shift. I've been saying for the past 3 years, this is the year of mobile. I said that last year. This year turned into the year of security and EMV, but I really feel like 2015 is going to hit the mark with mobile, and you'll see a lot of different players come into the space, especially with HCE, NFC, and our job is to support all of them. I think what I always tell our clients is that you can't support just one. The consumer is going to be divided on what they choose, and you're probably going to have to support all of them, and our job is to make sure our devices can enable that commerce.
Good morning, Rustin Miles with Bluefin Payment Systems. We're about a decade and a half old. We are a fintech security and payments company, have about 30,000 endpoints that we service. So basically, you'll find us right here at the nexus of tokenization, point-to-point encryption, and EMV, providing those services to merchants, both large and small. At the same pace that innovation is coming from other entrants in the market, that same pace is being outpaced in some cases here with the sensationalization of security because of the breaches. And so it's our job as a company to help new entrants and existing incumbents here in the market to make sense of security and make sure that the technologies that they implement to accept payment are secure. So we'll talk about a little bit more of that later, but that's who we are.
Cool. Now, I said as we had a conversation, we've got a lot of panels on Apple, and everyone keeps mentioning Apple and Apple Pay, and I think we're going to try and put that off as much as we can for a little bit, because we probably all get tired of apples and want a pear or a peach or a cherry or something instead. And I would begin actually with, where do you think the merchants are today? I mean, we walk into the store, and I walk across the street to Macy's. It's pretty much, I'm going to go in a terminal, I'm going to swipe. Where do you think they are today? Where do you think you'll see them 1 year from now? And where do you think you'll see them 3 years from now? And what do you see as a catalyst for that evolution? Broad question, I know.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot of activity. So if you're going to go through the process of getting certified for EMV, for contact and contactless, we're suggesting to our clients that you do everything at once. There's going to be some growing pains when you're going through the certification. It's anywhere from 9 months to a year to kind of get this for Tier 1 merchants. So I think you're going to see a lot of momentum in the next year. I think people are going to start getting in line to get their certifications. And I think you need to do both at once. And I think retailers are seeing that. I don't see people jumping on board just because of Apple Pay or any type of wallet communication. I think they're going to be doing their EMV certifications and doing contactless at the same time. I also see with EMV coming in the market, there's going to be some friction with the EMV contact. So I think consumers are going to naturally migrate to contactless, which is going to drive some of this adoption. So in a year from now, I think it's going to be a little bit bumpy for retailers trying to figure out their strategy, but I think 3 years from now, it's going to be driven by the EMV standards, and it's going to be the norm.
So we're asking merchants, both large and small, to reterminalize, right, for EMV and for NFC and for whatever's next, and then tokenization, and gosh, you need end-to-end encryption and you need point-to-point encryption. It seems like there's always a reason every year to buy new hardware, buy new systems, upgrade this. Well, I think there's also an opportunity here that merchants are going to be moving more towards using mobile at the point of sale as the point of sale. You know, the concept of you know, selling is dead, long live buying, right? So what's going on there is that in my opinion, the whole idea, the concept around the point of sale is moving from a merchant-centric, heliocentric world to a buying-centric and purchaser-centric situation. And that also is going to help small merchants to make their way through these security and sort of new innovation, because these devices can do more, because they have the BLE, they have the NFC, et cetera, and they're not having to spend and invest and re-terminalize every few years for whatever the new payments fad or security innovation to keep away from the hackers are. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the merchants are kind of frustrated right now, but mobile is definitely on the radar from large to small, and I think a lot of the big merchants, they want to take this, they want to develop their own system because of like all of the hacking stuff. They want to be extra secure, and there's a long process to that. And I think a lot of the smaller merchants or a lot of the independents, they're looking to see what they can do. They're open, I think now more so than earlier, to try new solutions and to test. And it all depends on the culture and the personal relationship and how they can use technology to add more value to what they specifically need versus the other way around.
Which actually would bring up the question, do you see a merchant group moving faster or moving really slower? Like Bob just mentioned, the quick service restaurants, I believe, is one, which makes sense to me. Starbucks is always mentioned. Subway was mentioned by Jack Philbin, I believe, this morning, and a few others. Do you see a group that's ahead or a group that's behind? And what do you think that brings this group ahead? Is it repeat transactions, size, geography? Chicago-based is better than San Francisco-based, or something like that?
The two groups that I see that are moving the fastest right now, or at least that are obvious to me, are the largest of merchants who are trying to stay away from breaches. So they're re-terminalizing in advance of a liability shift for EMV or towards point-to-point encryption. And at the smallest level, there's a lot of new options for micro merchants. You know, I was in a cab, it was at Phoenix, and the guy's got all three of them. He's got the Amazon one, the PayPal one, the Square one there. I'm like, why do you have all three? He's like, well, this one over here is just offered, you know, a 2% deal, and this one's over this, and I use this for this kind of deal. And it's because all those devices are free, and it's a new way for him to get payments. So I think that the micro merchants, you know, who really weren't considered merchants at all before, you know, a lot of folks, when Square came into the market from the merchants services industry, were a little nervous. You know, are they going to come in? Are they going to take over? Are they going to disintermediate us? Or are we going to lose business? But really what ended up happening is they created a whole new segment of merchants that never existed before, who didn't want to pay for the monthly fee and didn't want to pay for the hardware. And so, you know, and it's almost akin to person-to-person payments, but it's micro merchant-to-person payments. So I see a lot going on in that space, you know, but that also is a space that doesn't care about security very much. They care about how cheap is it, how convenient is it, and can I get into the devices without paying for them or pay monthly fees. So I think that's those are the two markets that I see that are like moving fastly for certain reasons. A lot of other folks are just sort of, that I'm in conversations with, a lot of other companies are just sort of stepping back and just have a wait and see approach. When am I going to be forced to make these changes for security, or when is everyone going to adopt, you know, the next new payment scheme? You know, what's that going to be? And so it's a lot of wait and see approach, but those two segments are moving fastly towards making decisions and purchasing decisions right now.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. The tier one retail space has been in this market for the past, 11 months, trying to, one, make sure their names stay out of the papers. That's their number one priority. Nobody wants this bad press. So security is by far their number one focus. The petroleum business has the same concerns, but they're more shifting towards more of a commerce enablement type of approach, how to pay at the pump, how to tie the point of sale from the pay at the pump together. And their liability shift is until 2017, I believe. So they're really not quite there yet. So this tier one, tier two retailers are really the ones kind of stepping up, again, protecting their brand. That's number one to them, and then how to do the consumer experience all at the same time. And then you have this SMB space who is trying to figure out how can they be the big merchant? How can they do NFC communication? How can they increase loyalty? Again, I think you can go to a lot of folks in that space and you say EMV and they don't really understand, even know what you're talking about. So I think they're going to lag behind, the next few years.
I think there's actually multiple parallel development that's unique and different and like centered to what I want. A lot of the merchants I've talked to in kind of the field research, and one of the fear, one of the frustration was technology is moving so fast. They just got used to e-commerce, and now we have mobile commerce, and then there's all of the different channels, and now there is mobile payment, and every upgrade is very expensive. And how do they keep up with technology without losing their existing infrastructure? And there's a lot of great companies that come up with a lot of different solutions. So sometimes you have like almost a problem of having too much choice and not knowing if there is a clear direction. And I think the answer is there isn't a clear direction, and that is kind of good. But the main foundation is, one, it should be secure, and everybody follow what is the most secure standard that exists, and you keep improving upon that. And then two, instead of all of the tech terms, you think about a whole shopping experience. You think about the shoppers and how they've changed and what they want, and how now that all the babies are playing with iPads, that the attention span is being shrunk, and you think about how to make the business grow and what does that mean. And then I think convenience will be a theme that really, really drive that trend. And which solution will add the most convenience and the most value and make it easiest to upgrade, I think that is a customized solution, and that's something that the merchant and the different providers and the customers will have a conversation to engage in.
I agree with that. My largest competitor is analysis paralysis. Folks are out there just not making a decision, not making a buying decision, pushing that off. And so the thing that I typically try to get them to agree with is that they want to stay out of the paper. So they make a security decision. They can agree on making a security decision, and I can do as much future-proofing of that device or amortize that device over time or figure out how to get them in, because that's something that at certain levels they understand today, but that's definitely a big deal for us.
Cool. I have about 20 more questions written down, but I think I can open up to you guys first. Are there any questions out there that are pressing and you'd love to ask? Feel free.
Cool. So we're very new.
Hey, Didi, the question basically is at the grocery, how do they mitigate the risk that comes from self-scanning?
Yeah.
How fast and how big has it been deployed? And what mitigates the risk of theft of me just taking my apples and not paying for them?
So we're very new. Last Friday, we just got confirmed that we will be in pilot by the end of the year, so we're very, very happy about that. And as far as what's been done, and the big players, there's three that's really been taking mobile self-checkout in the experience. The big player, Apple, have Easy Pay, which is really, really nice and simple, easy app to use. And the way they mitigate it is it's connected to their iTunes account, and there's still some issues that is working through. Walmart they have Scan and Go, and they did like a whole rollout in like 200 of their stores. And Stop and Shop, they also have like a mobile app that they're trying to do like this whole concept. And as far as the startup world, it started, we came up with the idea while we were in the airport wanting to buy a bottle of water, and we couldn't get it because we had to catch the plane and the line was too long. And we got really frustrated. We thought, it's the 21st century, we should just be able to scan and pay. And we're like, let's do that. And then we find out, we're not the first, because it's a very obvious, it's a very good idea. And the first startup is IO Buyer. They did it, but they were acquired by Intuit. And then Q-Through was a Seattle one. They had a really successful pilot in Seattle, but there was some internal issue, and they changed to e-commerce now, I think. And then the other, there's the ex-PayPal people, and they are Shopping Pal. They had a pilot in San Francisco. And then there's a few other startups that's coming into the picture because we're coming from the perspective. And how we mitigate the loss prevention is we come up with a two-app solution. So when you go into the grocery store and you open your app, the retailer, they have their app based on their own internal security requirements. It can use on computer, it can be offline, it can use on a mobile tablet, and it's kind of merging the retailer app versus the customer's app. So you go in, you open your app, they immediately see you. And as you scan the item, they see what you scan in real time. And before you make a payment, they have to confirm. And this allows customization and flexibility based on the different merchants' needs. So what they can do is they can, the idea is if they know you, and you're really friendly and you shop there all the time, they don't worry about you stealing. You can automatically approve and you don't worry, you bag and you go. And then that also encourage them to build that relationship because we think the best way to prevent loss prevention is to have a relationship. And you need the people for that. So we think technology should aid in the boring tasks and the scanning and the checking out and the paying, but then you still have people to like build that relationship and to get to know your customers and to really bring the full circle back together.
And the question is, in this case, as Dee Dee just describes, kind of a card not present situation, will grocers be willing to pay for the card not present versus a card present, where they actually get a discounted rate right now?
Yes, actually, that's why we're kind of really excited with all the wonderful mobile payment like development, which can move towards card present. But card not present is similar to the online shopping right now. And I think it's math. It comes down to how much value we add, and do we add more value than the cost? And if so, then it makes sense. And we were able to do independent research. With permission, we installed cameras and captured a week worth of over 7,000 shoppers that go in and measure how long they spend shopping in the store and how long they spend in checkout. And based on all of the industry research, we hypothesize that we can make a significant difference in the throughput, in the customer experience, and then we're going to do a before and after analysis, and hopefully our hypotheses come true. But if you just look at the traditional self-checkout kiosks, they're really expensive. They're growing at around 10% a year. They're doing really well. But despite all, they're still growing despite the different complications and everything else. So we think that the line busting and giving the customer that extra convenience would generate a much greater value than whatever costs that they would be charged.
Okay. Cool. Just out of curiosity, are you able to get an ROI and say that the customer has an upsell by being mobile, or costs are down, or something like that for the merchant or for the grocer in this case? It'd say something like, say customers buy 10% more because they can check it out themselves, or I can keep 2 fewer employees going and assign them to something else.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different surveys and research out there, and what we want to be very objective. That's why we use kind of just camera and track the time, and we want to be able to have real relevant data that's applicable. So what we are measuring, because we haven't piloted, and the 2 industry number, they say customers get bored after 2.5 minute wait. Part of the reason because it feels more than 2.5 minutes. And a 5-minute wait is the industry research that says when customers start either buying less things, either abandoning purchases, or do something else. And personally, that's definitely happened to me and to a lot of people I know. So we measure around that time, and for our measurements, the average wait in our pilot store was 3.6 minutes. And we think, and there's a long tail that waits more than 5 minutes, and there's group of shoppers that wait more than 10 minutes, and one of the reasons for that can happen any time of the day is because they close different checkout lanes. So based on how many shoppers they have, we estimate that there's a significant sales gain just from what's currently that could be lost from buying less things or losing customers. But even beyond that, we make the checkout process more efficient. So if you're processing for their staff, it's literally the push of a button. And if they know you already, it's easy, it's done. So the checkout time will be much shorter. And for the shoppers, you get rid of the wait and you make shopping dynamic. Because if you're scanning as you're bagging, you don't feel the wait. So you are doing part of the work, but it's very personal, it's what you want. So we think that extra time value, if we convert time into money, we have significant savings. And we'll find out. Hope.
Cool.
You know, if I
Please.
want to add, you know, what a lot of our tier 1 group is doing right now is it's not so much just paying on the spot. So what they'll do is they'll scan an order and they'll put it in the queue and they'll actually then send it over Wi-Fi to a register. So you'll see a lot of that happening too in the space too. So it's not so much that it's not just mobile checkout. So think about other ways you can speed up your line and line busting. So you have somebody ringing everything up. Here's your total. Hey, swipe it, send it to like Terminal 1, and then the consumer can walk over there. So they're really getting innovative on how, instead of just doing the checkout there, and how they can move those lines. And then you talk about ROI. I mean, there's a lot of ROI, especially during a holiday type of season. You know, you think about a traditional cash wrap, what, $10,000, $15,000, you know, dollars, whereas you can just do a mobile type of solution. So that's kind of where you see a lot of that, especially like the Victoria's Secrets and a lot of these retailers. I see high volume and have different subsets in their stores, like the beauty part and things of that nature. So the ROI is definitely there in that those types of scenarios. But you'll start to see retailers being a little bit more innovative when it comes to doing self-checkout.
Yeah, this panel's on, you know, MPOS, mobile point of sale, and I agree with that, Erica, that we need to think about these a little bit separately. It's easy to kind of just say it's mobile, it's all together, but there really are different drivers, and different folks gain benefit from mobile wallet kind of mobile payments versus mobile payment acceptance, really, mobile point of sale. And so you'll see a lot of merchants, you know, again, with the taxi or the folks that use the Square, et cetera, is that they're driving to MPOS or mobile point of sale for certain reasons, because of the reduction in costs of hardware and the ease of being able to begin to accept credit cards. And then on the other side, you have folks that are going to be presenting mobile wallets using their phones. So they're kind of two different markets, and they need to be kind of tracked differently and sold to differently. And so the things that are going to make them buy and sell, you know, it's a completely different dynamic. So you know, with Bluefin, we are more on the merchant payment acceptance side. And so we're securing things and providing innovations and innovation, et cetera, surrounding that kind of market. But then you'll see folks out there that have a more customer-centric experience, that, you know, offering wallets and things that make sense to consumers.
Cool, which makes sense, which actually would bring up the question, there's a couple questions, as always. First of all, as a consumer, does my opinion, besides going to an Apple Pay and a phone, as long as I'm using my wallet, do I have any say-so in it, or is it all the merchant? You know, is there any preference or any consumer adoption needed, or does it come down to I walk into Macy's and they say, do it this way?
Well, yeah, so you go to Nordstrom, right, and they've got the old registers there, or some registers, real registers there, and then they'll walk out with the tablet, et cetera. Or actually, in my case, it was like an iPhone and a little jacket sled deal. So I wasn't given a choice. Do you want to go stand in that line? It was convenient for me. The first time I did it, I felt a little like, that's an iPhone, you know, a little uncomfortable. But the second time I went back in, it was just, you know, business as usual. So they sort of forced me or guided me down that path. So I didn't get much of a choice. I'd say, as far as mobile wallet being accepted, Apple Pay and others are going to have to do a good job of making that make a lot more sense than just being a unique, nifty thing to get to use my phone in a new way. You know, we talked about all omni-channel, multi-channel, other things surrounding wallet payment. Why me as a consumer? Why would I go and grab my phone out rather than my card? You know, the device here, in my opinion, is inherently insecure, right? It's sort of open to the internet, so anything that's going to go in or come out of this device, I can't trust, or I don't trust. So putting my payments in there, you're going to have to get over that hurdle. So I'd say, you know, if the merchant is going to force someone down a mobile wallet path, they might be putting consumers in an uncomfortable position this early in the game, but it's nice to have that out there, especially, it's new news to bring consumers back in or to give them other options, et cetera, but, yeah.
Yeah, we actually, we don't develop devices that don't accept all forms of payment, because we agree with that as well. It's not in our best interest for our clients to say, here is an MSR-only device, here's one that's only, a chip and signature. You need to be able to offer all types of payments to your consumer. So, for example, Nordstrom, that device has chip and pin, chip and signature, NFC, contactless, you name it, you don't confuse your consumer or frustrate them. So I don't see retailers saying you have to go this one way. They're going to have to accept everything for a while.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also think the consumer at least I know a lot of the mobile point of sale discussion. One of the biggest frustration for merchants once they are convinced is that they are having a hard consumer take-up usage of the different the scanning or the different device, and that's definitely going to be a challenge we will have to face as well. And so I think the direction generally have been the industry driven a new technology, and then the merchant decide, and then we'll see what the consumer response is, and then we adjust and change. And but I think part of the mobility is we can actually bring consumer into the discussion earlier, and we can adjust. And the thing with all of the different apps and different mobile solution is it's cheaper, it's easier, it's more flexible, so you can adjust faster and you can actually figure out what consumer want sooner, and maybe even have them being part of the discussion as well.
Cool, let me ask, actually, and I'll begin with Erica on this one. What makes a system stand out, and what does Verifone, what will make a consumer, whether it's large or small, buy Verifone rather than Ingenico or Micros or something like that? And the same thing on the smaller ends. What part of the system would make you buy you rather than somebody else?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that retailers look, for one, at security. Who's going to be their security partner, right? Because at the end of the day, a terminal looks like a terminal, right? Between any of my competition, you have to look at end-to-end encryption. You have to look at the security point. You have to look at who can deliver tokenization, who's agile enough, who can go to market fast. When Apple announces the next iPhone, who can provide a mobile solution within 3 to 6 months? Because again, even though we're in all the Apple stores, we really don't know what they're going to do next. We sit and watch the presentations just like everybody else, waiting to see if they change the size. So agility is one, and then really, who can be your partner? Who's really going to be able to be your partner through all of this EMV, through the certification process, and who understands this market? So, I think with Verifone, right now in the U.S., we have about 75% market share. So I think that kind of shows that we're a leader in this space, especially when it's coming to EMV. And for large or small business, when you talk to SMB market, you need somebody who really understands how you're going to get there and how to be secure. Again, our clients' number one concern is keeping their name out of the papers.
Cool. Anybody else? Do you have any thoughts on what was going to make somebody else lead, or what's the most desired thing amongst merchants, from the vendors? For mobile, obviously, not for stationary.
Gosh.
Putting you on the spot, right?
I know, right?
She did a good job.
Yeah. I'd have to say, in the conversations that I'm in, it's either security or, even though we talk about, some of these new forms of payment, there really aren't new forms of payment. Most merchants that I talk to, when they think of Apple Pay or these other things, are just thinking about, it's a new way to get my Visa and my MasterCard, in more of the same things in. So I don't see a lot of, they're not just running there, it's more sort of a wait and see. And so I'd say definitely right now, the decisions, the pocketbooks are opening up for security. So.
Did you have some
Yeah, I think Erica said it really, who they trust and who they want to work with. And I think it's just going to make this business a lot more open and the discussion a lot more friendlier, and cause with technology, information is a lot more transparent, and I think that makes everybody better off. And I think that kind of free exchange pretty much comes down to their specific needs and who they want to work with in the space, and I think they can work with a lot of different partners together in that.
So transportation is actually, I think, almost a little bit ahead of retail. So if you look especially globally on what they're doing with transportation and paying with the trains and transit, and then the MTA bus systems, they actually were, in my opinion, one of the first to actually drive this mobility aspect of it out of a need. I think next what you're going to see for mobility is going to be QSR and drive-through. That's really the next market I'm really focusing on, because when you have the NFCs, the wallets, and the EMV, how is that going to work through the drive-through? And that's such a dynamic space right now. Whereas retail, you can kind of figure out easily how to do mobile payments. You have the cashier, they come check you out, and then you move on. Where QSR is a little bit different, because I think as someone, I think it was Padian said, sticking out the Verifone terminal on a stick is not really the best solution for that market. So I think they're going to drive adoption to that market. And when you talk about hotels, they're a little bit different, right? So it's not so much of a mobile payment aspect. We're working with them on how to program their keys with NFC, and how to use BLE when you check in, how to have your key almost like the I should know this, I have 3 kids, the Walt Disney World experience, where you have everything on your key to access the whole park. That's kind of where the hotel chains, and how is a terminal going to do that, right? So again, BLE is going to play a factor into that, and being able to program your key against it. So that's kind of where we're seeing mobile move into that. So maybe not so much mobile payments per se for the hospitality industry, but having that key be your one function for everything. But the next phase, I think, is really going to be transit. It's going to be really interesting in what they do. Even if you think smaller, it's like the parking meters and things of that nature, what you're going to do in this space. But yeah, you're right. Retail drives it, I think, but retail drives it a little bit differently. They drive it for more of a consumer experience, whereas QSR and parking and transit do it for a necessity. So I think that's kind of the differences between those two spaces. I don't know, you'll have the Targets of the world doing it because they want to stay on top of innovation, whereas if you're a parking lot company and you're having EMV and you're having this coming, you have no choice. The unattended, it's kind of unattended retail. That's another interesting space, like the laundromats and things of that.
In the
Sure.
back right over there?
So pay at the curb, that's another growth area for that type of solution. And you're referring to the Harris Teeter pilots that we did. Yeah, great innovation. I think you'll see more of doing that in the smaller, even the small, like think about the flower shops, or you're with a Kroger and they want to sell flowers on Valentine's Day for all these husbands who forgot that it's Valentine's Day, they don't want to go in the grocery store. Not that it ever happened, right? You pull up to the curb, you see these flowers, and you can instantly have that communication where you have the convergence of that. Again, you go into an Outback and you just want to pick up your food instead of going in. Again, you'll start seeing more of that in those type of spaces. I think we were ahead of our time with Harris Teeter, what we did with you guys, and I think that's just going to, again, I said at the beginning of my open statement, I really feel like 2015 is going to be more the year of mobile.
I would add about something else that Erica said on the hotel side. There's a company out of Orlando, Florida called Intellity, which signed a deal with Hilton. So if those of you who came here, you probably got an email about 2 days before you checked in here saying check in by mobile. And within the rooms on the high end, if you're at a Waldorf or a Conrad's, it's for a Hilton property, they'll give you a tablet in your room. And everything from your food ordering to your movie ordering to needing an extra pillow or an extra blanket will be done on a system that integrates into everything from a tablet. And then for other people, they will also give you an app, and my Hilton app will do that, where I can pick my room at a DoubleTree. I'm staying at Embassy Suites tomorrow night. I was able to check in this morning, pick the room, et cetera, accordingly. So it becomes more than just the payment. I think it becomes all kinds of other parts of the experience. Disney World would be a great example, I think of that. And which leads me, I think we're about out of time, to the last question. Where does the data coming the other way work? Does mobile enhance the data, and are you selling it for data, or what do you see? Is there a merchant interest in data that comes out of having a mobile payment or mobile point of sale system rather than a stationary? In 3 words, is data relevant?
Nah.
Information.
So, I mean, that's more of your, line of business, but I think data is key. I think when Google Wallet and embarked in 2011, they did it for data. They wanted to be able to understand shoppers' habits and experience, and then how can they sell more ad space, and how can they drive value. I think data is king. Again, I'd probably say the same for Apple Pay, and a lot of it's not just to be able to line bust, right? They want the data. That is the golden ticket to all of this, so absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of, like, data's been kind of an all-encompassing word for everything, and it's simultaneously exciting and scary, but once again, I think the specific use of data, you can do, like, targeted couponing, you can get to know the shoppers and, like, get them what they want and figure that out more, but there's a lot of data that exists already, and there's a lot more we can make it more personalized. I think at the end of the day, it's not just about the data, it's about the interpretation of the data and the application of the data and the customization of the data, not just of knowing, like, you can go to my Facebook page and know everything about me if you're my friend, and, but not just that, because there's a lot more sharing. It's, it's not useful if it's just data talk. You have to be able to analyze it and be able to apply it at the end for the merchants.
Yeah, so we have I was working with a retailer so you would go to a coffee shop using BLE, you would go to a coffee shop, you would pay with your phone on the terminal. The terminal knows that you're within I think it's like a 200 feet range of this store, knows that you haven't shopped there in 30 days, can send you a 30% off to use that day when you're inside the mall, right? Because malls are trying to figure out how to kind of use this data as well and have more value. But then if you haven't shopped there in 65 days, they know that, and then they'll send you a 40% off. So again, like to your point, they're actually using the data to really drive your business.
I think, data is obviously being used and collected at the largest levels. There are a lot of new entrants in the market for mobile processing that didn't come from the payment side or the banking side or institutional side, coming from the innovation side, right? And I would just say, not to rain on any parades, but got to be very careful. You look at situations like with Forever 21, where they were, as part of the payment experience, accepting email, or can you provide this other information, your name, et cetera, getting that from the swipe, and then using that to data mine and communicate to the client. They were misusing and abusing that information per association and brand rules, because that information was provided to effect a payment or authorization on behalf of the card brands, not as a marketing opt-in. And so I'd say as we put a mind to all of the cool, innovative ways that we can better serve our customers or better serve ourselves with their information, we just need to be careful what we do with that data, how we collect it, and what we do with it. So.
Okay, with that, I think I would like to thank everybody for A, attending, and B, for participating, although maybe that should be A, on the panel, making life easy for me by answering the questions so well. Thank you so much.